Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Touch of Class show. We have an absolutely packed show today. We have a lovely Monday morning in the Northeast. I don't know how cold it is. There might be a little chill in the air as we head into March. I hope everyone is doing well. It is a start to another week. And why not get this week started with another live show? You gotta love getting the week started talking about some Premier League over the past weekend and just going over some of the tennis that has occurred, some tennis titles that were won over this past weekend. On the agenda for today, we will be going over the Premier League review of the weekend results, which had a significant impact not only on relegation zone, but also Champions League places. We will then look at the Premier League preview for this upcoming week, as there are midweek matches this week. We have matches tomorrow, Wednesday, as well as Thursday. And then we'll wrap it up with some tennis as we cover the ATP Tour, the Acapulco Open and Dubai Open winners, as well as some of the WTA Open, the Merida Open, and the Austin Open. And then at the end of the show, I'm just going to tease a little bit of some of the videos that I have coming out later this week, as well as plans for Friday's show. Now, don't want to waste any more time. Let's just get right into it. Starting off with the Premier League review. And let me tell you, this weekend saw some crazy results. Starting off on Friday at 3 p.m. hot, we had Villa versus Wolves. And now, personally, I thought this game was going to go drastically different. Villa were in a must-win scenario because if they keep losing, they will slide down the table. And unfortunately for them, they did not win. Wolves took a 1-0 lead via João Gomez in the 61st minute, and then really just looked to control the game from there, Villa weren't really threatening as much as you thought they would, especially at home. You'd think that Villa at home versus one of the more bad sides in Premier League history would be able to at least get a goal. But no, they didn't. And then a different Gomez, Rodrigo Gomez, sealed the win in the 90th minute plus 8 minutes of stoppage time to give Wolves all 3 valuable points. Now, I don't see Wolves getting out of the relegation zone, but it's nice for the fans to see an away win, traveling fans. As for Villa, they fall down into 4th, and their slide down the Premier League table continues. If they don't get things sorted out, then we could see them drop out of the Champions League places very, very soon. And, for Unai Emery, that is not what he will be wanting to see. As for Bournemouth and Sunderland, that game kicked off Saturday morning early. We had Maono open the scoring for Sunderland, giving them a 1-0 lead at the Vitality Stadium. And Bournemouth, after that first half where they were a bit shaky, they looked pretty decent in the second half. They got back into it. Evan Nielsen scored a goal in the 63rd minute to level it at 1 apiece. And then from there were chances for both sides, but no one could grab the winner. The game finished 1-1 in a stalemate, and the two teams share the points at Vitality Stadium. Next, we have Burnley versus Brentford, and this game was the shock of the weekend for me. I expected this to be an absolute thrashing by Brentford, and that was just not the case. We had Brentford go up 3-0 early, and I had predicted Brentford to win 3-0 on Friday. So it was looking great. Damsgaard scored in the 9th minute. Then Igor Thiago scored in the 25th, and Kevin shot in the 34th minute. And you think to yourself, all right, this game's done and dusted. Burnley, relegation side, can they really get back into this? Well, it turns out in recent form they can. They've been scoring lots of goals even when they go down by, two, maybe three goals. They get that crucial goal before the end of the first half. It was via an own goal, and that kind of gives their fans the sense of belief, the sense that, all right, we can do this. We scored one, now we're only down two. The most dangerous lead in soccer is a 2-goal lead, even though it was 3-0. Now it's a 2-goal lead. And this Burnley team just doesn't die. You kind of back them to really fight. They're scrappy. And sure enough, at the start of that second half, that man, Jaden Anthony, scores in the 47th minute. And the Turf Moor is absolutely rocking. Like, those fans are absolutely up for it. And if you're a Brentford fan, you're starting to get extremely nervous because you're seeing your team collapse in real time. You were up 3-0 inside of 34 minutes, and now things look like they're getting dicey. The game is really flipped on its head in the 60th minute when Zion Fleming scores, and it's level. Next thing you know, Burnley then go ahead, grab another goal in the 80th minute, but it's ruled out by offside. And you think, oh man, if Burnley, just were another inch, a fraction of an inch onside, then they would be leading 4-3. Minutes later, then Burnley score again, and you think to yourself, they've done it. It's 4-3. Surely they're taking all 3 points home. But no, the goal is called back yet again, this time for a foul committed earlier in the play. And these poor Burnley fans, they were brought from the highest of highs to then the lowest of lows just 5 or so minutes later as the Bees play spoiler at Burnley via Damsgaard again in the 90th minute plus 3 minutes of added time. It was the Bees that take all 3 points at the Turf Moor, and Brentford continues their European push. What a game that was, by the way. Just incredible football match. Then we travel to Merseyside as Liverpool host West Ham. The Hammers look to do something to get themselves out of that crucial relegation zone. They're just sitting in 18th place, and there's unfortunately nothing they can do at the moment. It seems like whenever they get a win, all the teams that are just slightly above them also get that crucial 3 points. And luckily for them, when they're dropping points, like they did in this case, the teams above them are also dropping points. So it's kind of synchronized down at the bottom of the Premier League there. But Liverpool absolutely dominated this game. I couldn't have been more wrong. I thought this would have been an unconvincing win for them, but it's no surprise that when Liverpool move Dominic Szoboszlai back into that midfield, even though he was listed as a 10, you know that he plays more of an 8 for that Liverpool side. He's got that defensive stability that he brings to the midfield. It just makes them a more formidable team. They're harder to break down. They're harder to pass through, and they genuinely just look more drilled and up for it. I think that Szoboszlai, McAllister, and Gravenberch are the perfect midfield 3. You sign Wirtz for £116 million, and obviously you have to play him. He's your big money signing. He's going to add goals. He's going to add that creativity. But there are some games that you just need that midfield to just really dominate the opposition. And that was the case. This game was just an onslaught of goals for the entire match. Ekitike, Van Dijk, McAllister, Gakpo. Then there was even an own goal from West Ham. There was no slowing this Liverpool team down. It was high pace. It was pressure, it was counterattacking, it was just utter domination from Slot's side today. Something that we aren't really used to seeing with Liverpool of this year. Last year when they were on that title charge, we saw things like this, but this year they've been very lackluster at times, and this was a little piece of the Liverpool of old. West Ham did manage to get 2 goals of their own from Souček and Castellanos, but it wasn't enough to stop the Scousers, and they were more of consolation goals, even though their timing was decent in the match. Now, we move on to Newcastle versus Everton, and this match was also a thriller, as Everton go on to win it 3-2, breaking the hearts of the Geordies up north at St. James Park. Everton's away form continues. They are so dominant away from home, yet can't seem to pick up points. It's the funniest thing ever. It must be because their stadium is new and they're just not comfortable playing there yet. Goodison was such a storied, historic venue that the fans grew to love, and it was a part of their culture. It was a part of Everton and the town of Merseyside. And this new stadium just feels like a big metal bowl right now, and it doesn't have that sort of character that the Scousers would like it to have. But, that's going to come with time. And, if they keep this away form up, then that's really all they need at the moment. Branthwaite opened the scoring for Everton, the Toffees, in the 19th minute. And then Newcastle level it pretty quickly in the 32nd minute via Jacob Ramsey. And you think to yourself, all right, 1-1, the game's back on. No, the lead, or that draw didn't last long. Everton fire back into the lead via Beto in the 34th minute to get back in front. And that was kind of the story of this game. Newcastle punch and Everton counter punch. Again, late in the game, it was Jacob Murphy who scores in the 82nd minute, and Newcastle think that they've rescued a point, that maybe they can go on with their momentum of just scoring and possibly win the game. But no, it's Tierno Berry who's scored with his backside in one of the weirdest goals that I've seen in a while, in the 84th minute, I believe. He was tackled into the net by Lewis Hall, where if the ball hadn't been bundled into the back of the net like it was, that was a nailed-on penalty for sure. It couldn't have been more of a penalty. He is WWE top rope tackled him. But the ball was, like I said, bundled into the back of the net. And it's Everton, the Toffees, who take all 3 points at St. James Park. And they're going back home. And let's see if they can continue that form at home. I really don't think they can. Next, we have Manchester City taking on Leeds. And this game was a snooze fest. If you woke up for those early games and you watched them, as exhilarating as they were, then this was the game to take a nap for. Leeds played a fantastic first half. They were attacking. They actually saw a lot more of the ball than I thought they would. They had their chances. They had fantastic chances, actually. Donnarumma made a few good saves. And if you don't put chances away against this City side, they're going to punish you. And punish Leeds they did in the 45th minute on the verge of halftime. 2 minutes of stoppage time. It's Antoine Semenyo, the new citizen, that scores for Man City to give them the lead 1-0 at Ellen Road. And this was yet another performance by this Manchester City team where they don't look convincing. They don't look like the Manchester City sides that would dominate for the prior years. Yet they're still winning games. They're still winning performances where they don't show up, and that's what title winners do. When you're having an off day, you just find a way to win, and that's what Manchester City are doing right now. Then on Sunday, we have Brighton versus Forest on the South Coast. And this game was chalked with early goals. If you missed the first 15 minutes or so, then you might as well not even have watched the rest of the game. In the 6th minute, we have Gomez scoring for Brighton. And then in the 13th minute, Forest get their equalizer via Morgan Gibbs-White. But that draw didn't last for long as Brighton fire back into the lead via Danny Welbeck in the 15th minute. And you think to yourself, oh, we're going to have an absolute belter on our hands in this Brighton Forest match, which is probably one of the more least thrilling matches that you would expect. You know, if you saw on paper Brighton Forest, you're not really expecting a 4-3, 5-4 game. Well, you'd be right in this case. The game finished 2-1. There were no goals for the rest of the match, and this game finished 2-1 as Brighton take all 3 points at the Amex at home. Much needed points for them. Fulham versus Tottenham. Now, Tottenham desperately need this win. Bad. They still remain 4 points above the drop zone. Spoiler, they did not get the win. They did not get a draw. They sacrificed all 3 points to Fulham at Craven Cottage. Harry Wilson gets an early goal. Speaking of, there's been a weird amount of early goals in the Premier League this weekend. I feel like in every Premier League game week, there's some sort of parity, whether it's early goals, whether it's late goals, whether it's red cards for that matter. And this week it was early goals. Harry Wilson getting Fulham on the board. But it was then a second goal from Fulham. Alex Iwobi scores in the 34th minute, and Everton take a 2-0 lead into halftime, and they seem like they're going to coast through the rest of that match. Fulham on top 2-0 at half. Richarlison then scores in the 66th minute for Spurs, and they seem to be fighting just to get a point, earn a point. And unfortunately for them, it just wasn't their day. It wasn't the case. They were unable to really get anything going offensively besides that singular Richarlison goal. And it's Tottenham who stay in the relegation fight. As I said, just 4 points above the drop zone. And it's scary days for Tottenham as a Tottenham fan. Because if West Ham can get a win this week, then a 1 point gap would be very frightening if I'm a Tottenham fan. The ever so scary threat of relegation becomes a possibility. And if you find yourself in 18th as a Tottenham fan, let me tell you, you're going to be scared. You are going to be soiling your pants. Now, Manchester United versus Crystal Palace. LaCroix opened the scoring in this game with yet another early goal. It's the 4th minute. It was a corner kick. It was nothing really special. They weren't overcrowding the goalkeeper. It was just a fantastic ball. A fantastic ball played out to LaCroix, who was rather deep in the box for where he scored from, and it's just an immaculately placed header. St. Lamans had no chance, and it's Palace who take the lead early at Old Trafford. The rest of the first half was kind of a joke from Manchester United. They look disembodied. They didn't look like a team that was trying to play together. They looked unmotivated. They were walking at times. It just looked slow. And then I think Carrick laid into them in that second half, and they needed to. They needed to kind of wake up, and when that second half started, they came out fiery. They came out with more passion. They came out like they actually wanted to win the damn game. Bruno Fernandes then plays a ball that only Bruno Fernandes and Kevin De Bruyne would have been able to play when he was in the league. The weight of the pass it's perfect. It's through to Cunha. It's in a spot where LaCroix can't get the ball. It's in a spot where Dean Henderson can't rush out to claim the ball himself. And only Matthias Cunha can get it. It was a first-time pass. It was stunning football from Bruno Fernandes. Again, something that only he could do, proving why he is the best midfielder in the Premier League. And I believe that to be true. I believe that he is the best midfielder in the Premier League. I believe that this season he is the best player in the Premier League. And obviously there is bias there, but when you start to look at where United are in the table, if you take Bruno Fernandes out of this United side, we would not be in third place. After that ball goes to Cunha, he lets it just roll past him, turns LaCroix easy, and LaCroix puts his hand on his shoulder, grabs his jersey, pulls him back, continues the foul into the penalty area, and Manchester United are awarded a penalty in the 57th minute. It goes to VAR. There's a long review. The penalty's confirmed, but it looks as though they were reviewing for a red card. And now I'm able to say this in hindsight, that it probably wasn't a red card. Was it a denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity? Yes. Cunha would have been through one-on-one with Dean Henderson in a very good position. I just don't see that called as often as you'd like in the Premier League. So by the Premier League standard this year, I don't think it was a red card. However, by the book, it technically is a red card. And Howard Webb and the PGMOL are going to back themselves up on that. And that's fine. That's fine because it went in favor of Manchester United, and I'm not going to complain. Bruno Fernandes slots that pen in, and then Manchester United start cooking. Then, in the 65th minute, Bruno Fernandes sees a cleared ball land at his feet, and he whips in, yet again, another ball that only Bruno Fernandes is able to put in the box. Kevin De Bruyne would have been able to do the same, but those are the only two players in my mind that I think that could make that pass. Sesko leaps up, gets his head on it, beats the defender at the near post to make it 2-1 Manchester United, and that is how that result finished. I expected there to be more goals for Manchester United, especially after that red card. You kind of back the team to go win it, maybe 3-4-1, or at least have an onslaught of chances, and that didn't happen. So that might be slightly worrying in terms of whether you want to hire Carrick or not. But I'll take the 3 points. I will never complain about 3 points. Manchester United move up into third place for the first time since the 2023 season. Final match of the day, Super Sunday, Arsenal versus Chelsea. I was live for this game, and this game was interesting because every goal came off of a corner kick. Of course, in an Arsenal match, it's just going to be corner after corner, and both goals on corners. It may have well just been a corner battle. Like, just each team goes and takes a corner, and then you just go to the other side and do that. Because there was nothing really in the middle of the pitch in the passage of play that would have suggested that either team was scoring from open play. On that first corner, it is a Gabriel to Saliba combo that is just back-breaking. Gabriel leaps up at the back post, heads it down to Saliba. Saliba heads it in off the Chelsea defender, and it's 1-0 Arsenal. In the 42nd minute, though, however, it's Reece James who whips in such a tough ball to deal with, and it goes straight into the back of the net. It looks like an Olympico at first. He celebrates it as if he scored the goal himself. Chelsea fans are absolutely rioting in the stands. After the review, it does show that Hincapié did get a flick onto it to put it into his own net, so it will go down as an own goal, even though I think the ball was going in regardless, and if that happens on a normal shot, then that player gets a goal. But nonetheless, Chelsea level it. They're happy, and things look all good and dandy from a Chelsea perspective going into halftime. They come out of halftime and they actually dominate for the good part of the first 15 minutes or so in that second half. But right when that 15 minutes ended, it was Arsenal who then started that tactic of where they just get the ball down the line. They try to put it across, but really all they are working for is a corner kick. They deflect the ball out of bounds, and then they have Saka and Declan Rice on the corner kicks to try to level it. Yet again, 66th minute, it's Arsenal who score off of a corner via Jurrien Timber, and it's laughable to watch at this point because you just know it's going to happen. Both times I was like, you just know a corner goal is coming. You can feel it. You can almost taste it. And sure enough, there it was. The game was put to bed, though, when Martinelli picked up the ball in his own half, starts driving forward, and it's Pedro Neto who is already on a yellow and just makes a rash challenge on the sideline. Absolutely no need. All he had to do was contain his man, force him to the sideline, use that sideline as another defender, squeeze him. But no, he goes in, tries to make the slide tackle. It does not come off. Pedro Neto sees red, and this game was wrapped up after that. Now, my man of the match for this game is 100% David Raya for Arsenal because he saved them on multiple occasions. He had some stunning saves on Chelsea corners, as a matter of fact. And he gets Arsenal all 3 points to keep them ahead in the title race. Now, we move on to the Premier League preview for the matches upcoming this week. Tomorrow, we have Bournemouth versus Brentford on the South Coast, and I love Bournemouth to take all 3 points in this game. They're coming off of a tough draw. Give me Bournemouth to win 2-1. Everton host Burnley. Burnley, one of those teams that need a result to try to climb out of that relegation zone, which is just so daunting at the moment. They've been in the goals as of recent, and Everton's home form has dipped. Pickford has been playing incredible, though, recently, the England number one. I think this ends in a draw. Give me a 2-2 draw at Everton's new stadium. Then we have Leeds versus Sunderland. Both these teams also in dire need of a result. Leeds just above that relegation zone. Sunderland kind of in that mid-table kind of weird gray area. They have not been playing well as of late. But I'm going to take Leeds at Ellen Road at home to get the victory 2-1. And then to wrap Tuesday up, we have Liverpool traveling to Wolverhampton to take on the Wolves. And all I'll say is don't count Wolves out. You know, they've been picking up some tough results against the top half of the table. We saw them draw Arsenal. This past Friday, they beat Villa away at Villa. So anything can happen with this Wolves team right now, you know? You give them a little bit of hope, a spark, and, you know, crazier things have happened. But I still am going to take Liverpool. I think that they just have the superstars, and I'll take Liverpool to win 3-1. And Wednesday, we have Villa versus Chelsea, and this game is massive. There are massive Champions League implications for whoever takes this one. Chelsea need this win badly, or they will drop 6 points behind Liverpool in the fight for Champions League and 9 points behind Manchester United, who will be in third place. Villa, on the other hand, also need this win bad to stop the bleeding, to stop this fall down the table as they now sit in fourth. With both teams needing it badly, I think this ends in a draw. So give me a 1-1 draw at Villa Park as the teams split the points. Brighton versus Arsenal. Arsenal on the South Coast looking to keep their winning ways going. I don't think that this game is going to be very difficult. I think Arsenal just kind of manhandle them here. I think this is when they start to really break away in terms of the title. They just find their consistency. They find this form. And I think Arsenal take it easy. Give me Arsenal to win 3-1. And we have Fulham versus West Ham. West Ham clawing their way out of the relegation zone as they sit in 18th. They look to take on West Ham. They've gotten lucky with the results where they didn't lose any ground in the relegation fight. I still like Fulham to win, though. Fulham at the Craven Cottage, I just think that, it's going to be a 2-1 win for them. Manchester City versus Forest at the Etihad. And I think if this was at Forest, then Forest would actually have a good chance. They'd have a fighting chance. But because it's at the Etihad, Forest, not great away from home. I don't think they would be able to nick a point away. And I just think that City are in that mode right now where they don't lose games. This is what happens when City hit February. They turn into a different team. They flip the switch. They turn that gear, and they're just formidable. We've seen it how many times over the past decade, Pep's teams doing this. So give me Manchester City to win 2-0 versus Forest at home. To wrap up Wednesday, we have Newcastle United versus Manchester United. Manchester United obviously still unbeaten in 2026, but this game has me feeling nervous. I don't know why. I think Manchester United just aren't great whenever they travel to St. James Park. They aren't great playing away at Newcastle. It's always a tough game. Newcastle are desperate to find Premier League form, to find some points. And for that reason, I'm going to predict a 2-2 draw for United traveling up north. Thursday rounds out the football matches as we have Palace take on Tottenham. Visiting Tottenham Stadium, and this game is going to be significant. Palace will be without LaCroix, and they will feel robbed of points as of late with some of the results not going their way. But it's Tottenham who remain on 29 points, which is just absolutely woeful from them as they look to get back on track to just give themselves some breathing room from the drop zone. 4 points is such a narrow margin that can just poof like that. And then next thing you know, you are only 1 point clear of that desperate relegation zone. I think Spurs need a bounce back, and this is the perfect game. I am going to take Spurs to win it 2-1. Now, that's everything I have for the Premier League. Let's switch gears into tennis. If you've been waiting for the tennis segment, then I have got you covered. We have the Dubai Open, and this tournament was exquisite. It was great tennis. There was so many fun matches, and it just leaves a sour taste in your mouth the way the final went. There was obviously a walkover from Talon Griekspoor as he was injured, and Daniil Medvedev takes the Dubai ATP 500 title. Because there was a walkover in the final, that is not exciting. So let's go over the semifinal matches because those were actually quite intriguing. Medvedev took on Felix Alexander Alisime, FAA, and he took him down in straight sets to win 6-4, 6-2. Kind of uncharacteristic of FAA as he's been playing great tennis at the moment. And to see him go down like that is just super unfortunate. He was the number 1 seed overall in the tournament. But Medvedev is just playing at an incredible level right now. You got to give credit where credit's due. After last season, Medvedev choking early on in Grand Slams and major tournaments, just losing in that first and second round, it's nice to see him playing good tennis to get back to where he really belongs. Then we had Griekspoor face Rublev, and Griekspoor won in straight sets. 7-5, 7-6. Talon was playing on one leg for most of that second set as well, just slapping some incredible forehand winners against the Russian Andrei Rublev. It was a tough loss for him. I would have loved to see a final of Medvedev versus Rublev. I just need to see those two play each other. I think it would be cinema. But Greek Spor's tournament was fantastic. The names that he beat, Bublik, Jakub Mensik, now Andrei Rublev, just a fantastic run. And it's so sad that it had to end with him being injured and a walkover in that final. He deserved a chance to take down Medvedev, and I think it would have been an excellent final. But that was not the case, and Medvedev is your Dubai Open champion. We move on to Mexico, Acapulco, and this tournament was crazy. The craziness did not stop. We had the semifinals as Kaboli took on Kecmanovic and won 7-6, 3-6, 6-4. And then Francis Tiafoe taking down Brandon Nakashima 3-6, 7-6, 6-4 to set up a final between Flavio Kaboli and Francis Tiafoe. Two players that were struggling to really find their normal form, we'll say, because they both are top 20 tennis players, maybe even top 15 players when they're at their best. And last year, we saw a dip in form from both of them as the season went on. But it is those two who find themselves in the final, and it was a great final. Flavio Kaboli is playing at an elite level right now, and he had some picturesque forehand crossers. Tiafoe hit backhands to his forehand, and you think there's no chance Flavio's getting to this. But that little Italian can move his feet. Let me tell you, he was running all over that court, and in doing so, wins the first set in a tie-break 7-6. And then in the second set, he breaks Big Foe to win 6-4, capturing his third title over these past 2 years. Kaboli is looking to get that form back as he heads into the clay season. And speaking of clay, we will move on to the Santiago Open in Chile. I did not follow this tournament too much just because I'm not the biggest fan of some of the players that play in it. Obviously, they're all still fun to watch, but it's not my cup of tea, some of these guys. However, it's Luciano Darderi, who is victorious in Chile. And just a little fun stat for everyone. Luciano Darderi, since the start of 2024, has 5 titles on clay. Carlos Alcaraz only in that same time period has 4 titles on clay. Now, obviously, Carlos is not playing in the ATP 250s and probably the ATP 500s on clay, but just a fun little stat that Luciano Darderi is ahead of Carlos in terms of clay titles. That wraps up everything I have for the ATP Tour. Now let's move on to the WTA Tour, as there were tournaments in Merida, Mexico, as well as Austin, Texas. I didn't watch either of these tournaments too in depth. I caught a little bit of the Austin Open. I gotta be honest, I really didn't watch any of the Merida Open in Mexico. But it was Cristina Buxa who wins the Merida Open in Mexico. And Peyton Stearns takes down Taylor Townsend in Austin to capture her, I believe, first, if I'm not mistaken, ATP title. And after the match, there was a video circulating of her on Twitter, which was just really wholesome and really heartwarming. I think she's from Austin, or at least from Texas, because she had some really kind words for the Austin Open and its fans as she talked about it as her own personal Grand Slam. She said, even though this isn't a Grand Slam in terms of the tour, this is my personal Grand Slam, and I'm so happy to win it. So congratulations, Peyton Stearns. That's really awesome and great for you. Now, that has been everything that I wanted to cover. If you enjoyed this live, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think of these upcoming Premier League matches and whether you think someone like a Chelsea or a Villa will get the result that they so desperately need as they both fight on for Champions League football. I will have a video coming out within this next day or two talking about Liverpool and their woes this season, because even though they beat West Ham at home, it has not been the season that Liverpool fans would have wanted, especially coming off of winning the title. I will also be previewing Indian Wells, which starts this Friday, the elusive fifth major. That's what the players like to call it. It's a massive event in Southern California, in Palm Springs. It's going to be exciting. Indian Wells is always that first real tournament after the Australian Open where you think, all right, we're approaching more Grand Slams. We've got good tennis again. Get me to Friday. I'm not sure yet whether that's going to be its own video or whether I'm just going to be covering it all Friday. That might be a lot for just one live stream because I really want to go in depth, potentially round by round, and then give my predictions on who I think is going to win it. So we'll see what happens with that. And I just want to say thank you all for watching. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful Monday. Have a wonderful week. And I look forward to posting more videos.